Hi viewers. Welcome to TestBite. Today in our tutorial, we will be looking into what is a test scenario and a test case, and their differences. We will be describing each topic with real-life examples. Further, we will help you understand how to write effective test scenarios and test cases. Okay, let's begin. From an eagle's eye, if you look, the representation of the test scenario, test case, and test script will be following the order as given in this graphic. First comes the test scenario, which is done by the manual team. Then, each test scenario is broken into one or more possible test cases, which is also again done by the manual team. Each test case is then transformed into test scripts. This is done by the automation team. Don't worry about test scripts for the moment, as we will be looking deep into designing test scripts in our automation tutorials. Keep in touch with our upcoming exciting tutorials. So, most of you have already tested multiple websites and software applications. But, how many of you are able to tell what is a test scenario? Test scenario is any functionality that can be tested. This is basically a documentation of a use case. When creating test scenarios, a tester needs to think from the user's point of view. For accurate test scenarios, it is recommended to gather input from clients or stakeholders. Okay, let's think of a fan. Can you identify the possible test scenarios for a fan? Just think of its functionalities. Then we can think of how to test each functionality. So here we go. Check the view of a fan. Check the functionality of the buttons on the fan. Check the functionality of the remote. Check the speed of the fan. So, these are some of the very few scenarios we can write for a fan. There can be more. So, it's simple. Each function of the fan is a use case. Let's say you're provided with some set of use cases for a module. You should be able to identify the test scenarios based on the use cases. Let's not worry about that much for the moment. We will be covering them in a future video session. Basically, when a tester is asked to identify the test scenarios for a module, it is important to make sure that we have the necessary test artifacts such as system requirements, specifications, design documents, and etc. First, the tester should go through the SRS and the other documents thoroughly. While going through, the tester can make a list of all the functionalities that need to be tested. Based on that, the tester will identify and make a list of all possible positive and negative test scenarios. Once the test scenarios are identified, they will be ready for review by the supervisors or the leads. This is a basic template for a test scenario. The first column will have the test scenario ID. The second column has the requirement ID from the requirement specification. This makes the life of a tester easier, as it enables them to easily navigate through the requirements section of the document. The third column has the test scenario description. So, now that we know what is a test scenario, let's understand what is a test case. Come along. We'll show you. So, what is a test case? It is a set of actions executed to validate a particular functionality of a software application. Basically, a test scenario is what gets broken into test cases. A test case consists of positive and negative inputs and navigation steps. This is a graphical representation of test case formation. So, as mentioned before, a test scenario is derived from requirement documents or use cases. Test scenario is a single specific functionality. When a test scenario is further broken, it is a test case. So, let's again take the fan as an example. Now that we have identified some of the test scenarios for a fan, let's try adding some test cases. Verify that the color of the fan is as per the specification. Verify that the on-off functionality is working properly. Verify that the user is able to put the fan to maximum speed. Verify that the user is able to put the fan to minimum speed. Verify that the speed of the fan can be regulated using the regulator. So, those are some of the test cases we can write for a fan. You must have identified more than this. Yes, we need to make sure that the testing scope is covered and that nothing is missed. Okay, how do we write a test case now? Just like test scenarios, there is a way to write test cases as well. First, you should give it a test case title. For a good test case, the title should be strong. As a best practice, having the same line title is good. For example, if you're testing the login page, then give the title as Login Page. Then, you need to give a description of the test case. This will give you an idea about what you're going to test. Precondition. This is the criteria that must be met before a test execution begins. For example, let's say you're going to test the login functionality. To execute this, the user must have the web page loaded. So, this is a precondition. Then comes the most important part of a test case, test steps. The tester who wrote the test case might not be the same person to execute it. That is why it is important to have test steps. This routes the user on how to execute the test case. The expected result tells the tester what the outcome should be as a result of the test steps. This is how the tester determines if the test case is pass or fail. So, this is what a basic test case document looks like. There can be more fields than this. For example, some testers might include test priority level as well. This is a template made using an Excel sheet. Nowadays, many organizations use tools such as TestRail for easy access and maintenance of test cases and test plans. We will have a separate tutorial on how to use TestRails. Okay, now that we have an understanding of what is test scenario and test case, let's look at their differences. So, the test scenario focuses more on what to test than how to test, whereas the test case focuses more on how to test. A test scenario, as we learned, is derived from test artifacts such as SRS, FRS, and design documents, whereas the test case is derived from a test scenario. A test scenario focuses on functionality at a high level. A test scenario is broken down into several test cases focusing on each way to test the specific scenario. This is low-level action. Through a test scenario, an end-to-end functionality of the module is described, whereas a test case has defined steps, data, and expected results for testing the feature. It takes less time and resources to identify test scenarios since they are written in high level, whereas a test case takes more time and resources. That's all for today's session. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please subscribe to TestBite and stay in touch with our upcoming videos. Don't forget to hit the like button. See you again in our next tutorial session. Until then, happy learning.